Oh, wait, can you guys hear me now? Okay. None of this is financial advice. I guess my mic was not on, so I had to start off with that. My name is Anon, and I've been talking to myself for the last 5 minutes. So I'll go back and do it again then. What's up, Drake? What's up, Tom? What's up, Hunter? What's up, Hemez? What's up, Overmining? My weekend was good. I've been doing yard work all weekend, so I'm a little bit sore and tired, but it's good. What's up, Jay? What's up, Mason? All right. What's up, Dustin? Yeah, now I can hear all you guys. All right. Hopefully you guys can hear me now. Yeah, I'm so tired just talking to myself. I'm like, yeah, we're going to cover the weekly candles. And what's up, Face Sweat? What's up, Nikolai? Is it Nikolai? Nicolia? Phonetically write it out. How do I say your name? That'd be cool. I need to learn. Nikolai? Nikolai, right? Okay. Maybe not. All right. What's up, everybody? Yeah, just finished a Portal-like game with... I don't know that one. I knew there was a Portal game that like people were talking about. I used to play a lot of games a long time ago, and I don't have time. Once I had kids, I just don't have time anymore. But someday I do have one game that I play every once in a while. When I can find time, it's like a strategy, it's like one of the Shogun games. I was a Marine, so I like military strategy. It's fun, but at the same time, I don't have a ton of time anymore. All right, let's see. What's up, D? What's up, Jason? All right. Hey, and on setting positive but low expectations for this week. Yeah, I mean, at this point right now, we're back at, we can take a look at the options change real quick. But I was going to say, obviously last week was the week of, the ton of open interest. A lot of stuff got burned out, and let's see what we got here. Let's see how much got rolled over, how much. I know the next date that there was a decent amount of open interest, I think was it July? I mean, there's still a decent amount. They rolled over some stuff to this week. But I think I saw most of it getting rolled into it's August. That's where everybody rolled their stuff, I guess. So it looks like there's a decent amount in here. Let me do this. Let me pull up the options change so you guys can see it. There's still a decent amount for this week. And then it kind of dies off, except for a couple of June. That's a weird thing. So June 17th, there's a ton of really high calls. Like we're talking about like the 1250s, the 10s. I think it's probably better if I just screenshot it for you guys and we can kind of go through it and take a look. So give me a second and I'll put it up. Need to... I know Ace gave me a tool to use, but I haven't been using it. I haven't installed it yet on my computer. I need to just bite the bullet and do it. All right, so there's 2 weeks worth. Let's see if we can take a look at those. All right. So let's see. Hopefully you guys can see. we'll just look at this middle part right here. So they rolled over a decent amount to this week. This is your 350, your 4s, your 5s, your 6s, your 750s. There's still a decent amount there. There's a little bit that's in the money. Now, what I noticed, though, the thing that it caught my eye, though, was just June 17th. And that would coincide, I think, with the executive order, if that's what people were maybe playing that for. Just a thought. Where's my mouse here? So my guess would be that's probably why you see a little bit higher open interest in that section, is because people are betting on MOAS for like all meme stocks on that date. I don't know about it, guys. Personally, like, yeah, it's fine to take a flyer if you want to, like, as long as you're not dropping too much. But like, I just, the way I read the executive order, it sounds like it's just expiring. But maybe I'm interpreting it wrong. And then August it starts picking up again. August into October, and then there actually is a good amount of stuff in January. So people are buying, looks like leaps on, like a year-long leap on Aterian. I'll show you that in a second too. So let's just go over this one first. So you've got a decent amount of in the money right now. And then this will be the stuff that's, carried over probably. And we'll see what it looks like tomorrow morning. But this is what it looked like at the end of the day on Friday. So there's, a decent amount of open interest there. Not like a ton, not like last week, but there's a good amount. So we'll see how that opens up. And then this caught my eye just because you noticed down here these, oops. So, and my guess would be these are people playing the executive order. So, but that's for June 17th right now, 26 days away, 25 by tomorrow. So, not quite sure, about that one. But these August ones look decent. And once again, like, people can buy shares, and that's totally fine. I'm just bringing up the options because I know that's what some people look at to kind of get a sense of where the stock may go. It's good to at least understand the options chains because typically you'll see movements around certain times based off of, whether or not it's correct or not. Obviously, like, we had the high amount of short interest, going into the first quarter earnings. And actually, fourth quarter is the one where they dropped it to the all-time low. That's kind of the one I'm more thinking about. So, and then was it 2 weeks later, we flew up to 7 on no news. So the stock bounces around. We're going to, continue following everything. We'll keep adding notes, and I'll break down the first quarter is like, in like a real, like how an institution would write up a due diligence, and we'll cover everything about the company, from like the shipping stuff, and we'll deep dive into that. But let's just see. Here is the other part. So here's August, and you can see August is starting to at least build up some open interest there, and as well as October. October actually has a decent amount as well. And I think January right now of 2023 has the most open interest at this point right now. I mean, I'm just eyeballing it, but it looks like that January options chain has 2,000 contracts at 350, like 4,000 at 5, 3,000 at 750, 1,000 at 10, all the way up to like $45. So That'll be interesting. All right, what's up, Just Investor, Sergio, James? What's going on, guys? What's up, Fish? Finna move up. Futures look good. Yeah, I had a feeling, and we'll see how the market goes tomorrow, but SPY had been dumping and then had that massive rally at the end of the day just to stay out of the bear. You went from all the way down here, pushed back up to finish, but, it was an ugly day overall. Even though we finished technically green on the day, it was a rough day. And I don't consider that last minute rally to be, this is on the weekly. Let me show you on the daily. You came back up, but still pretty ugly for most of the day. This was basically just to burn puts at the end of the day. All the people that had gotten super bearish, just to let you guys know we can still push it up at any time and burn your contracts. And then for us, obviously, we kind of just chopped around. We had no volume, so yeah. What do we trade, 5 million shares? Yeah, basically nothing. Yeah, August is a smart move. Gotta have some data. Hey, guys. Let's see. Yeah, the executive order is the 3rd, so. Will September warrants affect the price? Can you explain your thoughts on these? Yeah, so here's the thing. They can't touch those September warrants until September. So you've got about 7.1 million warrants right now that are going to be available to them at, I guess, September 6th is the date that it go into effect. So, that's a good ways away. We got another, second quarter earning in there. So we had earnings here, and then I think there should be an earnings roughly in August. So, they've got to get through that. I think we've done this before. The better one to do is Webull in this case because I can zoom out. So here is where the warrants are available on this date. So they've got to get all the way through from now until here, right here. So it's a good amount of time, and they still have another earnings. So, if there is an earnings beat, for example, they're going to have a big issue. So a lot of hundreds of millions of dollars got yeeted last week. So one moon. I mean, honestly, nobody knows. If we knew, we'd be absolutely rich. So you could ask the same question to GameStop, AMC. Everyone's been waiting for their massive run up, and we are too. And I've been comparing some of these meme stocks together, and they're all running together on the same exact algos. It's gotten to the point now where it's not even they don't even try to hide certain things. They just they all move together with the market, or they're all just getting hit together. Yeah, futures look very green. We'll see. Many are hoping for a June rally. Yeah, and that's why probably there's some people that are that are playing it that way. So for someone playing super safe now, what low would you recommend a safe place to pick up some? I mean, so here's the thing. Where we are right now, we are about $1 away from the recent low, which is 210. So in this case, I would say it looks like we're going to be crossing over this week on the MACD. If you just kind of look, they were hammering us down, but at this point right now, you're looking at maybe Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, it might be starting to cross back over. Stochastic's gone, but it's still pretty shallow. It's a bit down here on the base. So I would imagine they're probably going to see at least some sideways to upwards action this week. So how do you think this will fix meme stocks? So let's see. Sorry, somebody wrote when moon And then he wrote, so we're effed. And I'm like, no, that's not really the case. You've got a good amount of time until September, and you've got earnings in there. Now, here's the thing that's interesting about Aterian is their second and third quarters were usually actually pretty good, if I remember correctly. And because during the summer, people buy like more air conditioners, like dehumidifiers, all sorts of like things. So that's actually some of their better times, depending on, because we're based out of the U.S. They sell a lot of the stuff on Amazon, so their marketplace is mainly the U.S. So they typically see their sales increase during the summer and not so much in the winter, because you don't really need air conditioners or dehumidifiers in the winter. So, hey man, looking at the OBV sitting at 1.1 billion and the market cap of 194, is that normal? No, it's not normal. Like, this stock is anything but normal. And so all those people who are like, oh, Aterians, I'm like, listen, like, you guys don't understand what's going on here because you haven't done the research. Like, at a quick glance, if I just looked at a balance sheet and just saw, like, some people just talking about some stock, I understand why people would be like, oh, well, these guys are just dumb. They're investing in some company that, and I'm like, listen, like, I've been watching this stock. It's not trading the way it should be. Like, this stock is highly manipulated. So, but yeah, I mean, at this point right now, I would go ahead and I would try to average down if you can. If we get dips, then that's great. That's just, it's not financial advice. That's just what I'm personally going to do. Is like, I'm just looking to acquire as many shares as I can on this company. Do I have any expectations or thoughts for this week? Yeah, I mean, if the market turns around and we start having some good days, I can imagine them going up slightly. Yeah, I mean, at this point right now, we're chopping around we're below book value. So book value should be, I think, like 324, 323 or something like that. I have to go through and double check. Once I write that DD, I'll have all that information on hand. But, like, I think I did a rough calculation, and I think it came out to like 323 off the last balance sheet that I looked at. So, yeah, they're all trading on the same algos. I just want BBB or BBIG to squeeze so I can sell and open a GME position. Yeah, I like GameStop. I've had GameStop for a very long time. I do like them. I think the stock split's going to be very interesting. Have I seen the executive order DD? Yes, I have. Most meme stocks ran that day. Yeah, I mean, I know that coincides, and I understand the logic behind it. I also think that there's multiple things, not just it was kind of like a perfect storm for that particular run, which was you all of a sudden had retail doing something that they didn't do very well, which was hold the stock regardless of the price. So all of a sudden you had retail trading like they knew what they were doing, even though they didn't. But you were basically squeezing a short hedge fund, and regardless of whether or not they knew what they were doing, it did line up with a weird. And so I think there was just like a perfect storm of events that happened to make that possible. How it went from a stock that was trading at like $12, all of a sudden it was $500 pre-market, and they had to shut down the buy button to keep retail from buying anymore. But that's just my own thing. Is there anything from stopping the SEC hedge funds institutions for forgiving? So they don't really forgive. They just the whole goal for them, if you actually have watched any of the documentaries, or if you just even understand how shorting works, the goal for a short is to get it to zero. The reason for that is because if the stock goes to zero, you actually never, and the company closes, you never actually closed your short position. Therefore, there's like a loophole in the system that allows them to basically profit tax-free from that entire thing. That also means that anything that was on the books, for example, shares sold short, all that stuff basically goes away. So if you did, not accusing of anyone of anything, but if, for example, a fund was to maybe have a net couple, million extra, shorts out there that were not technically, maybe they were marked long, maybe they were, there's a whole bunch of things that can happen. But hypothetically, if these guys were to, get it to zero, all that goes away. It goes into what's called something called the DTCC's obligation warehouse, and it goes to die there because even like all the stuff just gets piled up in there and never gets looked at again. So. But yeah, but here's the thing. So when short theses fail, like say, for example, Aterian has a better than expected quarter next quarter, right? So say, for example, you all of a sudden had a large influx of retail, that was buying their products. Their earnings were much better than expected because also it's summer, and they beat on everything. Maybe for the first time ever, they beat on both earnings per share and revenue. And, the company is in a much better place. Maybe they've got more cash. Like there's, from all the, sales, you could be looking at a large reversal. And that's actually probably why August makes sense. That's why they have a bunch of open interest there, is because beginning of August would be probably their second quarter earnings. So whoever made those bets is basically betting that Aterian might beat on this next one. So that would be my guess on why that August is so high in open interest. Was it a perfect storm last June? No, so last June was actually a different thing, I think. I actually think that what happened last run was strictly just a ton of... somebody went long on them here when they got deeply undervalued. So here, they beat on this earnings, right? So they actually had a beat on earnings per share and revenue on this one, but they got pushed all the way down to this 304 level, right? And then they accumulate here, and then somebody wanted to make money, so they just pushed the stock up. So somebody was this is smart money. So smart money starts slapping the ass. Look, and if you actually look at them, the largest days that they moved up, like on these biggest green candles, right? And I want you guys to notice this, because this is why I think the stock has done what it's done. Look at the volume. The volume's tiny, right? There's not a ton of volume, right? So we're looking at this going, okay, so we got low volume, low volume, low volume. They pushed the candle up on, honestly, not that much volume. What was that like? Let me see if I can go back and take a look at a better chart. But the reason I'm pointing this out, I'll just finish my thought. So this happened on pretty low volume, right? These days right here were pushing up on like medium volume, and then boom, you had this one huge large day, right? Where, I think that was like 250 million in volume, just out of nowhere, right? Now look at this one right here. Let me go back to... So, once again, this is a better indicator for volume. So we got 20 million here. That was a good day, but it wasn't, we've had 20 million days this week. Or not this week, but the previous week. You have another day that's like, what was that, 40-something there. Goes back down, low volume day, right? So some of the volume had gone. Get a little more, no volume, no volume. Somebody's slapping the ass on this and just starting. And here's where you can see, look, retail didn't really go, though, hard until here. This is when retail really entered in, was this like tail trail right here, this move up right here. So that means that on this day, when it was sitting there at like 10, that's when retail like FOMO'd in. Like it was already building. The retail was buying in this range, but people really FOMO'd right here, right on these days, right? And then retail continues, right? So they push it back down hugely. It can start to consolidate again, and retail goes even harder on this day, right? And then since then, what you would expect to see is the money flow out, right? And there's some money flowing out. Like you see a dip there, then people bought it back in this day, and then kind of dip. And here's the thing, right? So what you would eventually want to see if it was a normal stock was this, this money flow eventually starts like coming down into this range, because that's where the price is going, right? So if we take a look, though, right, we've got this, and it's just like a slow bleed, right? Until right here we go back up, and now we're even higher than we've ever been on the OBV and the money flow. So that would indicate to me, and I've talked to a bunch of people, and I wrote this in a DD, that I called up TD, I called up their Thinkorswim people, and I said, explain to me how these, let me find out like a long-term trend thing. What can I pull up? And these are some of the ones they asked. They said, okay, go ahead and pull up OBV, pull up money flow, because I was like, if I want to see something, like if there's a stock that I'm interested in, but it seems like the price has been acting weird, what are some long-term indicators I can see, to see how much people are moving in and out of the stock? And so I started going through, and this was just one of the indicators. I actually have a couple more charts that I keep up, but in this particular case, what I've seen is the money flowed in, and it never really left in large amounts. Like, sure, there was retail selling in all this spot, right? And you can see slight dips in the OBV and the money flow, right? It's not like it was peaking here at like 92, and then if you go down to here, this is like 80 something. So, but here's the thing, right? It never goes down like you see on other stocks. And so what ends up happening is we get this next run, and now everybody's back in. And so we're up here at the very top. So the question now is, let me zoom out a little bit. If retail ran in on the second pump up, right? That's when retail, you see the more and more money flowing into it and never really leaving. So like, that's what happened here. This first part happened on low volume, and so it was a little bit different than ours. Ours started out with high volume off the bat. Like this day came out of nowhere. Like we were getting 1 or 2 million, in volume, and then boom, out of nowhere we had 150 million in volume. So yeah, the GME, sorry, Andre, the GME split should be interesting. Yeah, I think it's going to be super interesting, because I that's where I think retail actually has their power, and that's what, I think. If you really think about why it is, like GameStop is what it is, it ran up because at the time everyone was able to buy their shares because they could afford them. Now most retail, that's been hanging around and watching and like kind of waiting for, GameStop to like, I think they should have done this back in the day. Like I think they should have put the stock split out there right away, and then put real pressure on the shorts. Maybe they did that because the SEC told them not to. Maybe, who knows? But like, if you had done a stock split, and I'll just cover that real quick. When the stock was sitting here in this range, and there was still a huge high amount of like public interest, and there still is. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, there might be even more people now, but during this initial run, when you had all this volume right here, if you had issued a stock like split somewhere in this range, even when it was consolidating, right? If you had done one right there at that point when there was still a huge amount of interest, by the time it would have moved into this stuff, it would have probably squeezed again, because what a stock split does, it allows you to get your shares to a certain price. Like the overall market cap doesn't change. It's just a different way of structuring it, but your shorts would have to basically, whatever the stock split, say it's a 5-to-1 stock split, your shorts now have 5 times as many shorts. You have 5 times as many shares, but the shares are cheaper now. Now all those people can afford shares again. So, if you're $100 and you have a 5-to-1 split, all of a sudden that's a lot cheaper that retail can start buying shares again and like, DRSing them. It would have been much smarter for GameStop to have done it back then, back when the iron was still really, really hot. Still, iron is hot, but I'm just saying there were still a lot of, there were people that have been like, oh, who saw that? There was a couple, subs that came out of it that were, just trashing GME afterwards, and I'm like, that's not really how this all worked. Because I remember like one of the worst feelings was going from up here and it just sitting here in the 40s, and I was like, I bought shares at 500 pre-market at one point on that day, I think. Never hit that high. But pre-market it was that high. I have to go back. I'm pretty sure I have a screenshot of that. I bought a share at like 500 or something like that pre-market before they shut off the buy button. All right, so yeah, somewhere around here though. That's when people were like, "Oh my god!" Like you can see, like there was a massive amount of like dipping on the RSI. Everything was just like it was pinned up here, that day, and then the next like couple days were just like miserable, just watching the stock just go down. But GameStop, yeah, they did a stock split, and it will still work in this case. Like if they do a stock split right now, they will make their shares a lot more affordable for your average retail investor who's DRSing their shares anyway. So, I don't, once again, and this is something that, Aterian could do too if they were interested. If people were interested in DRSing their shares, unlike computer share, you can't sell them there, but if you took away their ammo, that'd be very interesting. And that's what basically GameStop's been doing. They're saying, okay, you guys can control the game, and but at the same time, you're going to do it with a lot less of our shares. So now anything you guys are doing, you're digging your own hole deeper, because you're not able to use our shares to short. You're going to have to pull up, like, there's a reason why. If you look at, I think it's, what was it, XTX? Yeah, like right now the XTS short interest is what, like, something like 500%? Is that right? Now, I know ETF creation and all that stuff is different, so you have to kind of account for that as well. But from what I remember, I think I saw something that said, like, the XTX is, like, 500% short interest or something like that. Let's see if I can find it, though. And yeah, I've actually read some stuff that it tries to explain how this works. Here's an article. Why is XTRX 600% short? Or sorry, XRT. I'm just reading through it. Yeah, so they have like this like stuff about redemptions, and they can extract shares out and just recouple that. There's all sorts of like loopholes within ETFs. So you kind of have to learn that, like, there's all sorts of tricks they have, and that's something you'll find out once you've been in the market longer, or for you've been in the market longer, you already know all this stuff. Morning, good evening. Somebody said good morning. All right. Do you think at some point we'll hear from Yaniv and the team? Yeah, at some point we'll hear more about, it's not so much. So the naked shorting's obviously problematic, but it's just part of the system. The way it works is it's the broker dealers and the brokerages that are the ones that are in violation most of all, because what they do is they let you buy those shares, and then they'll sit there sometimes with a million share imbalance. Like on this last run up, I did overhear when I was talking to some. I don't know how much I can reveal, but essentially there were like times where like Aterian's brokers were like a million or more shares short, that they couldn't locate. And so what they end up doing is, they'll wait until the price comes down and then they can reset their FTDs, or they'll wait for some sort of event, or, whatever it is. But there's a whole bunch of like ways that they can, kick the can, and, naked shorting is just one aspect of that. There's plenty more. And I think actually somebody was saying this weekend, I'll be honest, I didn't read through the chat too much this weekend for the Discord, but I will say that, like, I know that, and people, I vouch for him. I've talked to him before. He works in, I think, a private office. He's not with a hedge fund or anything like that. But he was explaining to people that, like, there's just a million tricks they have up their sleeve. And that is true. Like, I wasn't so much focused on the naked shorting as much as I know that they don't have all these shares. So, yeah, sure, there was aspects of, possible, so I have to be careful what I say, possible naked shorting, but that was mainly, I think, on the brokerages side. I think these brokerages were not buying their shares right away, so what they were doing was basically just waiting, and that causes FTDs to pile up. And so if Aterian, if Aterian's shareholders, which is mainly retail, keep continuing to buy this company while it's cheap, it's going to cause a problem down the line again. And we'll see Aterian go right back on the reg show. And, this is just going to keep bouncing around until at some point people go, you know what? I know for a fact that we've locked up the entire float multiple times. I mean, we've seen institutional ownership rise. They're lending out their shares, obviously, and making profit on them. But there are plenty that went long, and, that eats up some of the free float. So we'll keep covering all this stuff. I just want to make sure everyone kind of gets a good idea of kind of how things work. And, obviously it would have been great for us to, fly up last week. I lost a good chunk in options as well, that I had bought many, many months ago. I had deepened the money. I think the stock was at like $8, and I bought $5 calls for 7 or 8 months out. And I placed a large bet on that, and, we didn't hit it. So, and there were plenty of times I could have rolled it, and I just, I really thought last week it was a really good, setup. And it, unfortunately didn't happen. So, it's disappointing, and, a lot of us, a lot of us saw the potential of what that could have been, but not enough people had the things that mattered the most. And I know some people were saying, oh, well, you need to just do shares. And that's fine. Like, if you want to invest that way, I have plenty of common shares. The majority of my shares that I've been buying, I have to go ahead and DRS them too, because I've basically, the first batch that I DRS was my largest portion. And since then, I've just been buying shares whenever the stock goes down. And I've also been buying in the money calls, which when they do go in the money, I exercise for shares each week. And I've just been doing that over the last couple of months. But I haven't DRS'd the new shares, so I do need to do that at some point, because I don't want them in somebody else, my broker's name. I want them in my name. And that's just my personal, thing. I want to take away ammo from them. So, yeah, so the Tangy Nat, I DRS at the time 100% of my shares, and I had those long calls, like, it was not quite a leap, but I had 8 months of theta or something like that when I did it. So I was going to play options on that side and then the DRS shares, but I did 50% for GameStop and AMC. Yeah. I do have Twitch, Matt. I haven't used it. because nobody really has expressed any interest in it. But okay, so apparently Dan says that there's a monkey virus in China invading Taiwan. Yeah, I mean, like I told everyone before, if anyone's listened to these, on a daily basis, it seems like I've talked to people about, long term, I see the S&P heading back to probably the 320 area. And I mean, we've already dropped, back here, but like we gapped up a whole lot here right before the elections. I expect that to get filled, when you start looking at all these gaps here. That's a perfect area for us to retest and go back down into this, the 340s. Yeah, like right here, like that's the first target for me. So I'm buying like SPXU on green days and just letting it rip down, because that's eventually where I think it's going to go in the next, short term. What's up, Becca? What's up, ATER gang? The market is built on naked shorts. That's what the stock never be sold out. Yeah, I mean, because we don't do blockchain, you can't get a situation where market makers will make a market whether or not they have the shares or not. And that's how this all works. And that's how they worked on GameStop, and that's how they worked for Aterian. They will continue to make a market whether or not they actually have those shares or not. So does it bother you that Aterian had stock-based compensation? $29 million. I have to go back and look at that exact statistic, but I was going to say, I know they hired some new board members, and so they issued them shares. I know the shares, though, that were issued, they brought some good people on the board, and I think they probably had to get those people to get on somehow. I don't love it, to be honest with you, because most of those people are probably wealthy enough as it is, but I understand that to kind of attract the right people to really turn around your business, you have to go ahead and get some. You got to give the carrot, make it carrot stick. Make it look attractive for these people to join the board and help this company out. So that's what I want to see, is these board members really start to pull their own weight and start really making the company make good decisions for the company and help kind of guide it. Same with the COO. Like, he's got great experience. I want to see more from him. Just kind of turning things around for Aterian. They hired some smart people. Now let's see this work. But yeah, like, I mean, I don't love that if that's the number, but at the same time, I understand why they have to do something like that, because, all these other places you could be a board member. Why do it on the company right now that's obviously hurting because of the shipping crisis? So, overriding question: if there are DRS shares, does that mean the price can never go to zero, no matter how hard hedgers try? I mean, the stock price can go. I mean, now you're talking about like hypothetical, like how does that work? So yeah, like for example, as long as retail shares are like being held, there is going to be at least some value, unless the company would go to zero. That's the only way that the company itself would have to go to zero, because as long as there's some interest, say the stock dropped down to $1, right? Or 142, that's the running joke, right? So if the stock drops down there, even though it doesn't make sense fundamentally, the company still has value. And as long as the company still has, the ability to raise cash, the ability to, have investors still trade their stock, it's not going to go to zero unless the company files for bankruptcy. And that's when you would normally get like a stock going to zero. But yeah, in this case, the DRS doesn't mean they can't go to zero if the company actually like defaulted and can't raise any more money. But at the same time, DRSing takes away ammo from the DTCC system, which means that they can't use those shares that are in your brokerage anymore to short whenever they feel like it. So, in this hypothetical situation, if, let's say a bunch of people DRS their shares, like let's say 8 million people, 8 million shares worth of, retail disappeared and got DRS'd, right? Well, if you look at our free float, and if it was sitting there at like 28, 30 million, whatever it is, if all of a sudden there was 8 million less of those, that's going to cause reg show threshold to come back sooner because they can't locate these shares if there's continued buying pressure. So that's what it really is supposed to do. GameStop has a slightly larger float than Aterian, so, but yeah. And I wish you post on OnlyFans as much as you do on YouTube. Thanks, Kyle. Yeah, I have no idea. So what's funny is I've actually never even been on OnlyFans. It's not that I'm like righteous or like I just. There's a lot of other things out there that are free, and I don't really understand why people do those. But everyone was joking that I should do it and just talk about stocks and not even show anything. Just show charts and. All right, I prefer YouTube over Rumble over Twitch because you use Roku to watch. Yeah, I can pull up Twitch and I think I can dual stream it. I'm not big enough for it. I'd probably get flagged for that because I know Twitch has some rules with that. Which is like you're not supposed to stream anything you do on YouTube, but we'll see. So if retail owns the float multiple times, if we DRS even 30 to 50% of our shares, that would cause problems. Yeah, I mean, like honestly, if retail DRS shares and say we've established that we own a good amount of the float, like we own the more than institutions own as a whole. Like retail as a whole owns way more than institutions do. Institutions own somewhere between 19 and 25 million, depending on. I'm still shaking out like the actual numbers, because when I add up all the numbers off the 13F, I was getting 25 million. But when I look at all the other places, they're reporting that it's only like 19 million. So I don't know why, because I'm using the numbers that they're providing. So I did write a letter to Fintel and I asked them if they could look into it. So hopefully I'll get an answer next week. All right. Yeah, holding does nothing to the stock. It just current buying and selling. Yeah, so just so you guys understand this portion, like if you buy and hold a stock, that's great. But it's not really doing anything actively. If you're not like slapping the ass or like selling shares, the stuff your stuff will not affect the price. The only time that your stuff just holding affects it is if they've ran out of shares, and now they're sitting there and they're having a liquidity problem. Then all of a sudden your shares matter more. But we'll see. No, I'm not changing to Twitch. I think YouTube's fine. And yeah, the shipping crisis won't last forever. Fundamentals are pretty sound. I've got no problem with accumulating cheap shares for the long-term investment. I think someday ATER will be a $12 to $18 stock at some point. Yeah, probably. All right, so I'll do this for about 10 more minutes, and then I'll jump off. But I just wanted to let you guys know that I'm still alive. I just was doing some yard work all weekend, and, if anyone wants to talk about their weekend, go for it. My wife had one of her friends over, a longtime friend. We haven't, I've never met her. We haven't seen her in a long time, or my wife hasn't. It's been like years. So she was over this weekend. James says, slap the like. Yeah, I have no idea. I haven't even looked at how many people are on here. There's about 100 people. That's good. Let's see. Video link. Yeah. So did everyone have a good weekend? Or clear your head, slap the lake hard. Thanks, Izzy. That's a hard question to answer, but I would say my guess would be like 12 to 15 in a year or so if the shipping rates come back down. I think if you looked at the actual like earnings and you look at the COGS, like the cost of goods sold, it obviously went hugely up when the shipping container problem happened. If you took their old rate of shipping containers, which was like $3,000, and compared it to what they ended up having to pay, which was like 6x that. Like they were at one point paying something like 25 or 26,000 per container. That immediately caused a huge issue. Like they would have probably been profitable if the shipping crisis never happened. So, if we can get even like halfway down to that, that might be a halfway decent thing. The other thing is if retail actually buys their product right now and it shows up on the second quarter result, like if you have, and I'm not telling you to buy or, but sell or do anything. I'm just saying like a company's stock will go up if their product is being bought and their numbers are better. Like that's how you really get get change, is if all of a sudden they had a really good earnings, then that would be because they actually sold more product. They would actually, that's where I think a lot of people are missing this at times. You start going through and if things are improving, that means more institutions buy in. If more institutions are buying in on the lit exchange, the price is going to go up. So, yeah, and they've got like somebody was saying I don't have one of their chairs yet because I've got a decent chair, but maybe I'll buy another one. Buy another chair. I did buy a fridge from Aterian. So far, I've been happy. I was going to say, I don't use the spiralizer a ton. We used to when we did like zoodles, but I'm growing some squash in my garden, so maybe we'll do a spiralizer again. I just had to fix my AC, then replace the garbage disposal. Yeah, so they've got some good products that they do sell in there. So I think that if we see a nice second quarter, I think that's what will really cause this to move up. Before it was obviously increased volume and movement, but you can look throughout this history and see just there, like this whole move up was on very low volume. This is when retail came in, and this is when retail came in again, and it seems like every one of these spikes that's going to be happening will send the stock higher at times. So we're going to see how all this works. All right. Anyone else have any other questions? Or let's see. I had an ice maker of theirs before I knew who they were. Yeah, and some people were saying that the Mueller coffee maker is really nice. I don't have one just because I don't drink coffee, but I know everyone's woof, woof, woof. Everyone gets up in arms when they found out I don't drink coffee. I'm like, at the time I had enough bad habits. I didn't need to add another one, so I never got into it. I believe we will have a relief rally between now and July, August. I think we should see ATER have a nice bounce. Oh, good. So they had some good customer service there. It's probably through Amazon, but that's fine. Yeah, I like my mini fridge, and it fits a lot of my beers because my wife doesn't want me to keep beers in the big fridge, the normal fridge. So I have to put them down in my own man cave, whatever you call it. Yeah, so a bunch of people in here have bought their products before, and the products are pretty good. Obviously, some people have tried their squatter potty and raved about their bowel movements. And you can also pair that with the coffee enema, So, anyone who doesn't understand that joke, they actually do sell a coffee enema, apparently. what kind of human doesn't drink coffee? I know. Boo this man. Yeah, so beers beats Battlestar Galactica. I did watch the entire Battlestar, at least the remake. I didn't watch the original. I think I saw a couple episodes when I was younger, but I did watch the entire thing when I was in Iraq because, I mean, I got to a point where I'd seen, you can only watch Super Troopers and some other movies so many times. And so one of my roommates was into like sci-fi, and he was like, yo, he's like, I got a show for you. I'm like, is there a lot of episodes? Because we've got a lot of time to kill. He was like, all right, so. Yeah, so I did watch the entire Battlestar. And then man, I watched a whole bunch of stuff when I was out there. I mean, because every night, like, you get off, we would do usually like 12-hour shifts. And so, like, the other 12 hours, you can only sleep for like 8. So what are you doing for another 4 hours? Just, because you're always at work, basically. Like, in the middle of the night, if you would have to get called up, that's fine. But, like, you were always on. It wasn't like there was like, oh, you go home to your family, and it's just like you're just sitting there half the time. Like, if you're not working, then you're in your can, and what else are you doing? So, like, we watched a whole bunch of, no, we didn't get any weed in Iraq. We actually we were on a dry base because it's a Muslim country and they don't have alcohol readily available. What's funny though is we hung out with some Brits, and the Brits all like drank, and like we were trying to be like respectful and like respect the culture, so we weren't allowed to drink. And also I think there's an issue with like drinking while having like an M16 attached to you and being in a high stress war zone. You probably don't want to be drunk in that. So I understand the reason why they don't want Marines drinking in the field when they're deployed in war. But we did watch the Brits, and the Brits would be like, wait, you guys want beer? We're like, you guys have beer? Like, what the? And then we did make a arrangement, though. There was a guy that was like, I can get you Jack Daniels. And we were like, all right. So he worked at one of the like gas stations off base, and so he smuggled in a bunch of bottles of Jack, and we did have a party one night towards the end when we were about to go home. Grilled out. We got the so they have, I think it was like Sodex or something like that. So one of the food contractors, Sodexo, I think was the contractor. We talked to them and got them to give us a bunch of the meat that they would have just boiled. We were like, listen, you guys have like meat, right? And they're like, yeah, we prepare it by boiling it. I'm like, that's gross. So we got them to give it to us, and we built ourselves a barbecue out of like pieces of like old tank and whatever we could find. Marines who don't drink. Yeah, no, I drink. We were just not allowed to drink in Iraq. So all read these days is military books. Oh yeah, the Marine stories. Yeah, it's fun. I mean, I don't really talk about that stuff a lot, but when we were out there, like, it's an interesting mix because like you're literally in a foreign country. Like, I was joking with somebody because it was pretty hot this weekend where I'm at, and people are all sweating, and I was fine, and I was like, yeah, it was uncomfortable, but been worse. And they were like, oh yeah, how much worse? And I'm like, well, it was like 140 in the shade when I was out there. They were like, wait, what? And I'm like, yeah, like we were sitting there in the shed. It was like 138 or something like that in the shade, because there was a thermometer that we had mounted to the wall of this thing, and it wasn't even like the direct sun. It was like in the shade, and it was like 138 degrees out there. And that night, I remember I was sitting there, and this is what the weird thing about deserts is, like, because it's so hot, but the swings are so extreme. You actually have this thing that happens where your body gets so used to the heat that, like, even when it swings, like, something like, I think, so going from like 138 down to, I think it got it down to like the 80s that night. I was literally wearing like my sweats and shivering in 80-degree weather because your body's so used and it's acclimatized for the climate, so used to that you actually get cold, even though it's not really cold. Like if you just flew in that night, you'd be like, oh my God, 80 degrees at night, how hot this is. But for us that were out there and then like crazy, I'm sitting there in sweats, just shivering like in 80-degree weather. And I'm like, this is crazy. So, but yeah, the deserts do get cold at night. And actually, when we've got out there, it was like probably in the 40s. It was like in the 40s, and we did have snow flurries at one point when I first got out there in February, and then we got over there. So I met some special forces. Wait, I met some special forces stationed at Camp Perry. Fun people. These guys hid beer in the garage bag. Yeah, I mean, like, you got to figure out ways to do it. Like, we had the guy at the gas station smuggle it in, and I think what he did was he put it in Listerine bottles, because the original Listerine was kind of like a brownish color. So he actually like got together like a bunch of Listerine bottles and like rewrapped them and then brought them onto base for us. So cake or something. Can you please explain what happens in September with the warrants? I'm a little confused. Okay, so warrants are basically just like long call options, except for they also are dilutive. So it means that the shares will eventually hit the shares outstanding and increase them. As long as the price of the stock is over what the warrant price is. And the warrant price, I believe, is like $3.21 or something like that, or $3.20. So what happens is, as long as we're over that number in September, those warrants can be exercised. So all that's going to happen is those guys are going to go ahead and get their shares, and they'll acquire more of them. So they'll have the full amount of the shares that they issued from the private placement. So, and if you think about it, the reason why there may be a ton of October and January options is because people might think that, hey, listen, these guys that just acquired all these shares eventually are going to want to make their money, right? So they got their shares at $2.90 and $3.20. So if they, for example, want to see Aterian make a bunch of money, they would be the ones slapping the ass because they have a ton of interest in the stock going higher at that point. So that's why when people are like, oh, well, if they get these extra shares, is this over? I'm like, no, because they now have a huge incentive. They own almost 10% of the company at $2 to $3 basically. So why wouldn't you want to make your money, right? So if you're like a long institution that's holding all these shares, they're going to have, what was it, 7 million in warrants. They also own another 6 million in common shares. So they have an incentive to see the stock go up at that point. Like, it would be them slapping the ass personally. Like, if they want to get their money out and make a huge amount of profit, they just acquired 10% of the company essentially, and they would be the ones who have every reason for the stock to go up. So yeah, the cost of goods and all that stuff went up hugely from 2020 to 2021. If you actually go through the balance sheets, you'll see that, Mason. And that was the whole problem. Like, when COVID hit and then the shipping crisis happened, it just completely threw them off their game because their entire model got screwed up. Like, if you think about it, like, imagine you have a mortgage on your house, right? And your mortgage is $3,000 a month. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the bank calls you up and says, hey, listen, that mortgage of yours, it's going to go up to 12,000 next month. And you go, what the hell? Like, how could that, what? And they go, oh, well, things have just gone up, and, then the next month they come and they say, okay, well, now it's going to be 20 grand a month. And you're like, wait, what? Like, how can you, but that's essentially what happened to them was their shipping containers went from $3,000 a container to all of a sudden they were paying like $25,000 a container. So yeah, their balance sheet obviously looked horrible once that happened. That was the whole reason they got shorted down. They actually were in pretty good shape prior to that. And obviously some of their mergers and acquisitions didn't go exactly as planned. I think they thought that they would be a little bit more profitable on some of those. So, can't change that now. I mean, at this point, you just hope they turn it around on those particular, items. But, yeah, we hold. Do you think it could squeeze before the September warrants? Yeah, I mean, it can. It could squeeze this upcoming week. Who knows? Like, I think there's multiple chances that this could happen before September. Like, we've got second quarter earnings, we've got like, possible like the executive order if that's a real thing. But if whether or not it's a real thing, the options change is starting to get stacked, and so you're gonna have dates where retail starts wanting the price to move up, and if there's enough momentum, then yeah. I mean, at some point, all it takes is someone to slap the ask, like on these days like this, and retail will come back in, because that's what retail does. They chase whatever's the attractive thing at the time. So, yeah. So I mean, like, I'm not saying shipping has come down somewhat. It fluctuates though. It goes up, it goes down. Like, overall, it's cheaper than it was back then because of the deal with Amazon Logistics. So they're paying less than they did before. It's still, though, not back to where it was, and that's what I'd love to. But yeah, Shadi, I'm not sure about the executive order. From what I read, I didn't see it as like, I thought the language read that basically they were just ending the executive order, not that shorts actually had to close. So that's how I interpreted. I could be wrong, but that's just how I interpreted it. And I'm not saying that the person writing the DD is wrong. It's just when I went through and I actually started reading that executive order, I'm going, I can see how it can be interpreted that way, but I also think that, like, I would like clear language to be changed inside the, if they renew it and then they, push it out, I want new language in it that actually specifies out, like, oh, well, yeah, none of this can be used as collateral, and, if you do have collateral like that, then you have to close it out, or at least be accountable for, the difference. Yeah, I'm not going to blow, smoke up anyone's, like, I just personally, when I read it, I didn't see the same thing that other people saw, but doesn't mean that it's not a thing. It just, at this point right now, I think second quarter earnings could be a better catalyst, and or even some of these, once again, the non-event, even if it like is an event or isn't an event, someone thinks it's an event, so they're going to stack up the options chains there. So as long as they're doing that, then it's an event, because they're going to have to fight it. So, all right. I hear my wife doing some dishes. I'll go ahead and help her, but I just want to let you guys know I am around. I'll see you guys on the Discord, and I'll try to catch up on what I missed this weekend. But hope you guys are well and had a great weekend. And let's go ahead and I'll dive into some DD this week. I don't know. I'll try to write it more like an actual, like, impartial person would. And I need to break down the 13 Fs, because I think they should be finished around this week, like maybe midweek. So that's probably when I'll put out like the next ultimate like DD, and that way we have a good sense of where we're at. All right. You guys have a great evening, and I'll see you tomorrow. All right. Have a good one.